here, Chris Hegedus, Frazer Pennebaker, and Nick Doob. Mics are coming.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Just a question to contextualize. Was this film initiated by the Bowie team because they knew this was the last concert of the tour? What was the origin of the film?
But anyway, it was initiated by.
Can't hear you.
That story went well. RCA have come up with this new technology called selective vision, which is basically back in 70, 71. And it was going to be the new kind of, well, at that time they didn't even have laser discs yet. But they come with this, and they wanted to have some material to put with it as they came out with it. So they initiated this with the Bowie office to create this material. It's kind of how it started. But they didn't really come out with the thing until 1983, was when they first released it. So it took a while for them to get the technology.
What was it called?
Selective Vision by RCA.
But they sort of dropped it at some point, right?
I think their technology wasn't working so hot at the time. It took them really to 1983 before they got it out there.
But Penny always wanted it to be a feature film, so he edited it longer afterwards.
Much longer,
And then it went on television in a kind of strange simulcast.
So ABC had this Friday night at performances series they did, and they got this film on. And what they do is they have a local FM station simulcast the audio. So you put that on, that would be stereo, because they didn't have stereo TVs back then. Well, probably not yet, but so that happened.
Nick, you were there. It's Giulia. What was how many cameras? What was the setup? How free to move around were you?
It was 5 cameras, and there were 3 of us on the sort of lip, just downstage on the stage. The thing that was a problem for shooting was that there was no sort of barrier or anything. I mean, we were in there with the crowd. This is a hard way to shoot. That's one reason it's a little has that kind of shaky look. And in fact, at one point, the label guy, I got on his shoulders and tried that. That was much worse than anything. But yeah, I was really struck watching it this time that none of us really knew that much about Bowie beforehand. I mean, I think Penny knew nothing. I knew nothing. And Jim Desmond had bought some Bowie records, so he knew a little something. But there's such a sort of feeling of discovery, in the shooting. It's something that there's a quality in this shooting that I hadn't really seen, and for me, it really was a learning experience because I hadn't shot anything like this before. Jim Desmond was a wonderful shooter and did shot Monterey Pop and other things with music, but and anyway, I just there's a sort of a funny spontaneity that I think is just all of us were sort of independent. None of us, I mean, Penny was not telling us what to do. We were just trying to figure it out as the thing went along.
You want to talk about that you filmed the night before?
Well, we came in, and there were 2 concerts. And the first night we shot sort of knowing it wasn't really going to be part of the film, but just to get a sense of what it was like to shoot And that film we brought to a lab that night and watched it the next morning. And so we had a sense of sort of exposures and sort of what the lights look like and sort
I
of.
think Penny said he adjusted the lights after it a little bit.
Oh yeah, I guess he did. I'd forgotten that. But you know, it was. We were really the thing that I think was unusual, especially at that time, was that people on music concerts, a lot of times you're sort of told what the director wants, and there was none of that going on with Penny. It was everybody was sort of trying to figure it out as they went along.
Was there much interaction with the was there much interaction with the Bowie people and with Bowie himself prior?
Bowie himself was so gracious. I mean, he didn't know. You could see that he had no interest in telling us what he wanted from this film. I mean, I don't know if Penny talked to him more, but we had one little sort of meeting on stage that first afternoon, and all he, you know, it had nothing to do with how to make this film. It never was. Nobody talked that way.
I think there was a question here.
Who was watching the girls in the audience? Who had their camera on the girls?
I definitely did, but Penny, I think, also shot it
So much
a
fun.
huge amount. Yeah.
Was it shot in 16 and upres to 35?
Yes.
Yeah, it was shot in 16, and we actually altered it a bit in the 80s because Bowie decided he wanted to put it out again, and we actually cut out Jeff Beck, who was there, and it turned out he didn't like something. It turned out he didn't like his pants or something like that. Ridiculous.
I think he felt like he was showed up by
By Mick
Ronson.
Ronson?
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, he came out, and then Bowie came, and we went into the mixing studio again and remixed the film a bit. And I remember, Bowie was just so incredibly inventive, and he tried all sorts of things. Like at one point, he was like putting doo-wop backgrounds on some of the songs, and I didn't hear it, so I don't think that stayed in at all. But he was just totally in control. I mean, he's such an amazing, creative person. And at one point, they decided they wanted to have some animation in it. And so we actually got this animator. He was a kind of famous indie animator, Robert Breer, who we did this thing because Bowie was in The Elephant Man on Broadway, and he got spectacular reviews. I mean, he's just a versatile, amazing, creative person, Bowie. So we decided to do this. Is what Bob Breer wanted to do, or did. I think is it on the DVD? I don't know. But anyway, Bowie comes out of the dressing room, and then he kind of just walks and gets on stage. And part of the type of animation that Bob did was rotoscoping. So he kind of rotoscoped him, and then he turns into the Elephant Man head and kind of out of it, and then kind of goes on stage and turns into David Bowie. But I don't know why, but it didn't get put in. Do you remember, Frazer?
I don't think Bowie wanted to pay.
So there's that.
Hi, thank you. That was amazing. So, what made you all decide to inspired you to become filmmakers and go into filmmaking? And what was probably the funniest thing that you would remember from that film of this documentary with David Bowie?
I could just say for myself, Penny had a lot to do with it for me. I mean, Don't Look Back and Monterey Pop were films that really got to me at the time. And this was sort of a dream come true for me. I mean, I had done, as I said, none of this kind of shooting before. So it was, and the reason I got to do it at all was just somebody who I knew recommended me to Penny. Was a and you know, filmmaking back then was a sort of stodgier than it is now, and it's the kind of freedom of this kind of filmmaking was something that was unusual. It just wasn't there. It wasn't what people were doing. MTV wasn't around. It was a different time.
There was a lot more musical performance in this compared to like Don't Look Back, for instance. I'm curious, like, what do you think drove that? It's more about like in Don't Look Back, it's actually more about those in between scenes. What kind of shape that? What kind of elements caused them to make more of a concert film?
Did people hear the question?
Yeah.
Let me repeat, just in case. He's asking what drove the decision of making this more like a constant film in comparison, for example, with Don't Look Back, which is more about the space in between the musical numbers.
I mean, basically, this is what Penny was hired to do on this, and I think on Don't Look Back, I think once Penny met Bob Dylan and started filming with him, he decided he wanted to have the film be not a concert film or be about the music, but really about Bob Dylan, and because he really saw Bob Dylan as kind of a Byron-esque figure, and he wanted to kind of film, what it was like kind of for the future for this kind of poet that he thought Bob Dylan was. But I had one funny incident with David Bowie, another one besides mixing and some other times I met him, but that has to do with Sag Harbor, which was Nick and Penny and I were making a film about Elaine Stritch, and she was going to do a show in London, and for some reason she didn't like to fly, so she wanted to take the QE2 across to go to London, and it was she was going to be guest of the captain, and the theme of the cruise was going to be theater, and so we kind of got to go too because we showed some of our theater films on it, and Elaine was just as impossible as she always was. We weren't even out of New York Harbor, and she already had like people from the ship duct taping all the vents in the room because it was too cold or whatever. But it was a wonderful trip, and Tony Walton was also a guest on it, and he was an amazing lecturer and person to be around. But we got a call one day, we got a note that David Bowie was also on the ship because he didn't like to fly. So he was also going across, and he wanted to have lunch with us. So Nick, were you there? I can't remember. And so anyway, we had lunch with him, and he just was so nice. I mean, just the nicest person. I can't remember anything that we talked about because I was so in awe of David Bowie, but I don't know, maybe you can, Nick. But yeah, he was an amazing person, and he would call the office from time to time and have conversations. And
Well, he and Penny became real friends.
Yeah.
And they mixed the film originally together at the studio. That was before the changes.
right.
Did he ever talk on why did he want to retire Ziggy Stardust?
Wanted to move on. I think he wanted to just move on to the next.
I think that was a little confusing. I mean, nobody quite understood what it meant. I mean, I don't think it meant. It seemed to clearly mean it looked like he was retiring from performing.
Yeah, I think that's what the audience.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, that's what it sounded like.
And he said the band were really mad because they didn't hear about it beforehand. He didn't even tell them.
Yeah, could you talk about the blurry close-ups? Was that an intentional stylistic?
No, yeah, there is something about. I'm not trying to make an excuse. There was no doubt there was. People were. It was hard to find focus, put it that way. But red is a really funny color on 16 millimeter to focus. It's very difficult. If a blue light is very easy. And I think that's all it was. It was just. I'll tell you though, in general, the lighting situation there, it was very hard to shoot. It was very hard to find focus. You know, on the kids during the strobes and all that, it was just about impossible. And it was a difficult situation. But the focus was not deliberate. It's the best we could do.
Was there an effort to change the lighting after you saw the first night's footage? Because red is such
You were
a
saying it was, but I
problematic.
don't remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Penny saying that he just, bumped a little bit, made it a little bit brighter
But
because it
didn't
was
have
a
the
little dark.
lighting people adjust it themselves for the concert.
Pardon?
So you didn't try and have a concert lighting people adjust their lighting at all?
No, you did. Is what
Yes,
you're
he
saying.
did. He had
Oh,
them
I thought you
adjust
meant
it up a
he
little bit.
adjusted the exposure.
Yeah.
I see.
But don't you think that actually works wonderfully for Bowie because he's so stylized and so that it's all the silhouette lighting.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes. Seems to
Sometimes it's just out of focus.
I know. And his costumes and his thighs. I mean, just Bowie.
But the Jim Desmond was shooting with 1200-foot magazines. That's big, this big, a very very heavy camera, an old Oricon camera, and I mean he's kind of the anchor of the shooting. His shooting is so consistent through the thing. Sometimes he was a little soft. I mean, but he mostly wasn't. I thought.
Do you recognize each other shooting when you look at it?
Oh yeah. And I'm always very conscious of that. But yeah, sure.
Were you on the left-hand side?
I was stage right a little bit. I was just off center, and Jim was stage left. There was a Penny shot these wonderful shots from upstage, looking down, and I think God also while he was doing that he did a lot of audience. His shooting it's just very characteristic of him, and I mean at Monterey Pop it's the same deal. Then there was a camera all the way in the back of the hall on a tripod, shot by a British cameraman.
Yeah, I always say that because I've shot a lot of concerts with both Penny and with Nick, and I mean, and being the front of stage camera, and so that Penny can just like wander on the stage and take all those wonderful shots. I mean, it just kind of gives him the freedom because he knows people aren't really getting the rest of the concert.
Who shot outside the theater and in the dressing room?
Penny shot in the dressing room. That was fantastic
Amazing.
shooting in the dressing room. I shot the outside, but again, there's. I mean, I think that Penny just said, "Go shoot stuff," to me, and so that afternoon I went sort of wandering around and shot the piano tuner and the outdoor stuff. But this footage in the dressing room is sort of miraculous to me. I love it.
I think it's time to say thank you much for coming.
Thank you.
Projectionist up there, Brave the 35, and thank you for